Welcome, Ecom Logistics Nation. Thank you for joining today's episode. We're on a mission to share e-commerce logistics insights, trends, successes, and challenges from the leaders and innovators in our space.
The data empowers us to sort of challenge the norms of, well, it's either free returns or it's not. Or maybe there's a variable policy.
Yeah.
And I think that's where the partnership angle really comes in, because you've got all these different vendors here. Like you say, many of us are very, very good at certain things, but as opposed to sort of your traditional partnerships, who start sharing data, then I think that's a real power of the opportunity of partners.
Hey, Ecom Logistics Podcast Nation. We are back from Manifest 2024. We had an amazing week in Vegas and wanted just to tee up and share some of our thoughts. Nanad, where would you like to start, buddy?
I just have to say it was a phenomenal event. It has been great in the previous years, but this year felt very special. And I think there is a combination of things over here, right? Like you got to see more buyers, sellers, partners, right? Like this, just a combination. You got to see types of companies that didn't exist before, right? Like in this show, and that kind of shows how meaningful it's starting to become, right? Like this niche of niches, right? Like, so people are like, oh, these other shows exist, right? And I think to us, it's starting to become one of the most meaningful shows. I have to say, the one that I look forward to every year. The best way someone described it, and I'm going to use it, to me, it's like LinkedIn IRL, right? Like it's literally LinkedIn in real life. All of these people that we connect with and talk to and just like pass messages around on your LinkedIn post, or, partners that we work with, as an example, everyone is there, right? Like specifically for us. So to me, it was great big success at a macro level without a question. And just the amount of stuff that we learned out of that, it was phenomenal. I mean, what are your high level thoughts, Dan?
Yeah, I completely agree. And you're right. It's LinkedIn Live in person. And a lot of, it's funny, those that I know that weren't able to make it for whatever reason, I mean, they were texting and calling. They're like, oh my gosh, I'm never going to miss Manifest again. And for a show that has, what did they have? I think around 3,500 people attend. It's very personal. It feels like a boutique event, but there are 3,500 people there, and it feels like you actually have the opportunity to have a meaningful conversation with everybody, or the majority of the people there. So I'm impressed with how they put the show on, and everyone there seems to lower their guard a little bit too. So it doesn't feel like it's a salesy type event. It feels like it's about networking and how can we help each other grow and flourish. So big fan.
I think partnerships definitely the big name of the game, right? Like if you're a supply chain SaaS company, this industry works on partnership. And again, I'm very wary of partnerships, by the way. Like, I think that's pretty open secret, right? Where the amount of partnerships that you ink down, only a few actually work out. But if you truly put the effort in knowing the goals of what you want to do with partnerships, and you have like clear, concise messaging between two companies, I think there is so much good that can come out of it, because nobody can do everything, and you're going to need good friends, specifically in a modern SaaS-based ecosystem. You can't go at it alone. Sometimes you might even end up partnering with your competitors. And I saw that happen a couple of places. It was really interesting to watch that play out. I have to also call out, right, like that intimate side of the event, right? Like this, just to explain, like the hallways are in an L shaped, or it's U, but like the main hallway is like an L shape. I gotta say, like walking through any of that hallway, if I didn't have my head inside my phone as if I was doing something, it would take me half an hour just to walk through one hallway. Just because you would be talking to so many people. Like if I was going somewhere, other than that, I love talking to people. So like I was so happy to just be like one conversation to the other conversation to the other conversation. It was phenomenal. I genuinely enjoyed it. Yeah.
Feel the same. I think a couple of couple of takeaways. I'll just go to high level and add some color commentary to whichever ones you want to. I think there's a big opportunity in the market for integration work and a lot of conversation around all things integrations. I think transportation is top of mind for everybody. And that means more domestically with, I think middle and last mile is, I mean, you couldn't escape that conversation. You know, we both come from the days of Genco, and returns are absolutely a hot button. And the last one, I think, is we keep hearing how there's not any money in the market or any investment dollars. I think there are smart dollars that people are aggressively looking for where to place them in the market and where to place their bets. So I think there is money out there. It's just a matter of, you know, is it the right fit?
Exactly. And I think just to add on top, right? Like I got nothing else to add above and beyond what you said, other than one thing, and it's the resilience of supply chains, but it's the resilience of the companies as well. You find the seriousness in the companies that didn't exist when the times were good, right? And you kind of see them react and be open and willing to have these dialogues that were not on the table a couple of years ago, as we start looking at, okay, how are companies going to fare out based on if you survive 2023, right? We don't know, crystal ball 2024, what's going to end up happening. But a lot of it is going to be, how do I actually change my business, evolve my business, or keep growing my business, right? And you can kind of see that in most of the conversations that you were having, other than, you know, the ones that are pretty well set, right? So that was a big takeaway. You know, couple of the sessions, of course, you know, the two that are important to us. I I was part of a panel discussion with folks from BCG and Accenture, you know, from a strategic insight around talent and capabilities in the market, and some of the conversations that came out of there. How does supply chain react to the talent needs as capabilities in the market change, right? And the type of talent that we need to acquire, both at, you know, the frontline levels as well as at a management level, and like nurturing versus acquiring, right? Like, well, what needs to happen? Just a phenomenal conversation with some of the smartest folks in the industry, right? Yeah. Samir did a great job at moderating that session. And then, you know, for another session from Fulfillment IQ was with Harshida. So the panel for Harshida with Better Trucks, One Rail, American Tire Distributors, and Seco Logistics around last mile. And the importance of last mile, again, as part of how expensive of that last mile happens to be. Someone had once mentioned to me, it takes you pennies to get your product all the way from China to the United States. And then it takes you like $10, $15, $20 to get it to the consumer's house, right? Yep. Like, so that last mile actually represents the biggest chunk. And, you know, how are companies adopting and streamlining the utilization of last mile? And to your point, like, it is such a big conversation at this point. There are some notes out there, so I would highly recommend people to go out and, you know, listen to the stuff that they discussed on there. So, lots of good insights. I don't think we can cover it in a single podcast, but yeah, I just wanted to highlight.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And I think with your session too, obviously you can't escape a conference or, you know, too many conversations without talking about AI. But your conversation and your panel discussion was leveraging AI, but do not forget about the people, right? I mean, it's tech plus people, automation plus people, and it's that plus that sometimes gets a little lost in the noise. And that was a really good session just to kind of level set. You've got to spend time and energy with your people.
I think the conversation around the man and machine around automation, right? Like we have had that for a while. Be like, what automation's here? What does it do to people? And I think automation has remotely not impacted as many jobs as the fear mongering that had ended up happening out in the market, right? And it won't. And it will be a lot of upskilling and uptraining, etc. Right? Like automation's really, really useful in certain segments of the market. When you look at like the capital dollar investment, like e-commerce makes sense, right? But then there is only like X% of the market that's actually e-commerce, like let's say 10%. Like other than that, it's CPG and whatnot. And yeah, you got to have 1 million square feet and 200 people to then even start thinking about capital investment in a space of that nature. But what was really interesting is like bringing in the generative AI, and again, like everything else, like blockchain in supply chain, right? Like people want to start talking about that stuff, generative AI in supply chain. And it's like, it's really not going to impact anyone's job. If anything else, it's going to truly enhance everyone's job. So as leaders, focus on providing the right tools to your employees to enrich the quality of their life, the quality of work that they do, right? And walk away. Again, there is no like, they're there right now other than like management, upskill your team to a point where it becomes part of their day-to-day life and they are going to do even better than what they have done in the past, right? Like, and that's all that it kind of boils down to. And we spent 35 minutes talking about that. But it's kind of the summary of that particular conversation from at least my vantage point of what I was talking about on that panel.
Yeah. Love it. Love it. Well, we recorded quite a few episodes of the podcast while we were there. And, we'll have a few episodes that we recorded released over the next several weeks. And a special thank you to the team at Manifest. It was really fun working with you. Really appreciate the partnership. And we certainly look forward to Manifest 2025. And we want to thank Zell Logistics for allowing us to use their trade show booth podcast, which was an awesome concept. And Nanad and Harshida had a great conversation with Peter Sheldon from Maergo. And we look forward to you guys getting to take a listen to that now.
Welcome, Nanad and Peter. Everybody, we're joining you from Manifest 2024 on the last day of the conference.
The last hour
of the conference. How has Manifest been for you guys so far?
For me, it's been really interesting. It's my third year. So I came in the first year when it was, just in sort of the closing of COVID. And I think it's fascinating to watch it literally double in size each year. So, there's twice as many vendors as there's, twice as many merchants. There's, it's just twice the size it was last year. So, for me, it's great to see this expansion. I sort of follow this a little bit like in the e-commerce world. I saw, the early days of Shop Talk and how that show just really grew and grew and grew to become sort of the dominant e-commerce digital show. And I think that's where Manifest headed.
For me, second year, love the show. I just got to say, out of all the shows that I look forward to, one is Manifest, the other one Shop Talk, Real Talk. Us as a logistics company, I think Shop Talk's more for fun and meeting the brands. This one's all about partnership. Someone described this and it was the best way to put it. Like this is LinkedIn IRL, right? Like it straight up, because it's like meeting all of these people that we know, like that guy making faces. But it has been a phenomenal show. Unfortunately, I didn't get the opportunity to listen to a lot of panels, but the ones that I did were just really good in-depth topics, really good conversations with partners, clients, building some really good relationships, and then also the after party. So I'm in good place.
Love that. Are there any trends or technologies that you guys have either come across on the floor here or in the sessions that, were kind of like a light bulb moment or something that you found insightful that you can share with the audience?
Yeah, I'm sort of, I think the same as Nard. I haven't had the opportunity to go to as many sessions but looking at the agenda, I think there's a few sort of really interesting things. Like if we ignore that little 2-letter word that everyone's talking about and put that to the side for a moment, what else is, I think, interesting? I think, a lot of conversation and topic about nearshoring, moving that manufacturing, moving that inventory, out of Asia into Mexico. And sort of related to that, we think about sort of the final mile, the parcel, a lot of conversation about, shippers as well as the 3PLs and all of the technology providers talking about how do we really sort of embrace 321 and let's start, utilizing that and saving on import costs. So, I think that for me is, one area which we're in the early innings of this kind of concept of, moving manufacturing, to near shore. That'll be a 10-year plus journey, but the level of change in our industry that will, drive, I think is going to be fascinating to watch. So that was one of the observations I had.
No, I wholeheartedly agree. I mean, same feeling from the last mile side, right? And I think we came out of a really difficult year. Let's just be real. 2023 was not fun for pretty much anyone. A number that we recently heard was about 25% of companies in the trucking space got wiped out last year. Mm-hmm. It's a difficult year. We are getting into this space. We are seeing this nearshoring effect, the resiliency side. You are seeing companies really buckle down and say, okay, where's my new revenue channels, my opportunities that are going to start opening up? You're seeing all of these movement, and you can see it reflected at this show, right? There is a level of seriousness that I didn't see when the times were really good over the last couple of years. And you can see each one of these businesses thinking about resiliency, thinking about partnerships, thinking about that growth. It has been amazing.
Agreed. Yeah. There was a panel that I had the privilege of moderating yesterday, which was around, the topic that you just touched on, which is last mile delivery, and thinking of all of the innovations and partnerships and, the art of the possible, I would say, in that space, because there are so many opportunities. I mean, if you just think from like a cost and efficiency perspective, it's a super complex process. I mean, you guys are in the space, you know it too well. And it's very, very expensive. It accounts for about 53% of the cost of shipping. And, when you try to break it down and think about, okay, not only is it super expensive, but as you try and think about, small parcel versus bigger, big and bulky deliveries, that cost differentiation is, huge. And then when you factor in things like returns, that adds to the complexity and the cost as well. So brands and retailers have been struggling with this for quite a while. And this challenge just keeps, getting bigger and more challenging. So it opens up a lot of opportunities for partnerships and, relationships that can really leverage each other's strengths. And I think a really good example of that was, seeing how companies like yourself, are partnering with the, various shippers in the market. Tusk Logistics, for instance, was in the audience yesterday, and they are in the network with Better Trucks. And I know you guys are integrated with a bunch of different folks as well. I think that is the right approach in terms of leveraging each other's strengths and trying to maximize value for the end customer. Because at the end of the day, these businesses are getting wiped out if they cannot provide the value that they need to. And the cost pressures are just getting worse and worse given, the economic climate. So I think more than, most industries, ours really is looking for that disruption and is thirsty for the innovation that will, bring efficiencies and, cost effectiveness and just, better optimization all around. So yeah, I think, a lot of that, and, to your point, Ninad, this is such a good ground to have those kind of like partnership conversations and figure out, does it make sense to leverage each other's strengths and how do we do it in the right way? So that again, we're staying true to our core value, but tapping into what the other person's core value is as well. So, would love to hear your thoughts, Peter, in terms of, how do you guys think about partnerships, and how do you integrate and, bring value to the various folks that you work with?
One of the things I've observed about this conference is when I first came 3 years ago, it was very much about like robotics and automation. And there was a bit more, some of that last year. This year, I think it's different. I mean, there's still some of that here, but, I think a big part of it is data and AI and how we share that data across partners and how we can sort of leverage that data to really drive efficiencies in all the processes that we see. And so, I think you mentioned returns. I think that's one sort of really interesting area. Obviously, there's a lot of focus on that, especially with sort of the D2C, fashion and apparel type retailers. It's a huge, huge problem. And there's a lot of great innovation here at this show. There's a lot of, vendors really sort of tackling, how to, reduce the cost of returns. Yes. A lot of innovative solutions. We've got Happy Returns, Luke, and all these great vendors. And, a lot of, they've really, made the returns experience a lot more efficient, and driven cost out of that and made a better consumer experience. So that's all great. But now we're sort of starting to say, well, actually we're sitting on all of this data, and we actually should be able to understand what causes the return to happen in the first place.
Yep.
And yeah, there's a lot of innovation. If we go to Shop Talk, there's a lot of innovation because there's, virtual fitting tools and 3D augmented reality. And so, yes, the consumer can virtually try on that product, that type of thing. But I think we're starting to even go further beyond that and actually get really hard about, well, think about bracketing. That's one of the big causes in fashion apparel. And if we know that a consumer has lots of the same things in their cart and, they're all more or less the same size and color, we know what's going on. We know that they're going to order 10 things,
exactly,
turn their home into a virtual changing room and then ship most of it back.
Right.
And so I think we're starting to ask ourselves questions. So what do we do with all this data? Should we, in fact, have a risk score for a bracketer and actually, the retailers in real time be able to make a decision? Well, actually, we're not going to offer this consumer, free returns. We're going to say to them, sorry, it's pretty clear what they're up to here, and you're going to have to pay for returns. And so, the data empowers us to sort of challenge the norms of, well, it's either free returns or it's not. Well, maybe there's a variable policy.
Yeah.
And I think that's where the partnership angle really comes in, because you've got all these different vendors here. Like you say, many of us are very, very good at certain things, but as opposed to sort of your traditional partnerships, we start sharing data. Then I think that's a real power of, the opportunity in front of us.
I have to say that, on the return side, I've never heard as many returns conversations as this conference. And it's real, right? Like, it's real from the amount of capabilities, making returns profitable, making sense of returns, the circularity, right? Like, that's a big subject now, and it's a meaningful conversation that people are having. It's no longer lip service. I can pretty much tell you that. And it is the material that goes into products. It is the way they are being brought back. The entire idea of previously loved, right? This, and people are very comfortable.
Yeah.
So this, where Poshmark and whatnot existed, I think brands are starting to take control of that experience as well.
Yeah.
And making something good out of it. So the dynamics are changing so fast. And so between liquidation, B2B, B2C, and things like resale,
I think,
right, brand specific resale
e-commerce,
capability.
The secondhand, market where, moving that in, you've seen a lot of brands, I think, Lululemon and others, great examples where they're now have, a full resale market. It's,
So, and maybe a shout out, because they are one of our clients as well, is Trove.
Exactly.
Trove powers Lululemon, and the way it is been done, it's amazing, right? Like, the entire experience is very controlled from a brand protection perspective, right?
And at first you might say, well, what's that got to do with the supply chain? It's huge impacts of the supply chain.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And it's also the trade-in and the brand value, right? Like, it all ties in to the circularity, without a question.
A little bit of a teaser for you guys that are listening to this. We're planning on doing a little panel on reverse logistics and returns management. So we had a little prep session this morning when we were having breakfast and had, about 4 different reverse logistics providers that are really solid and have a very differentiated viewpoint in terms of, why returns are a problem that has to be tackled and has to be tackled in the way that they are tackling it. And I think it's going to be a really interesting conversation. But just to kind of give you guys a little bit of a preview, returns have been consistently going up thanks to initially, Amazon kind of disrupting the market and saying, we're going to give you the option of giving us free returns, which was amazing. It delighted customers and everyone. We saw a shift in behavior where people started expecting free returns. And we saw a whole shift towards free returns for many, many years. And a lot of retailers and brands kind of converted over to, allowing and, building their products in a way where they were accepting free returns as well as kind of writing off what they were expecting in terms of returns in their bottom line. But over time, what has happened, especially because of COVID, is e-commerce market has gone up so much, and it leads itself to a lot of returns where people are not able to have the kind of experience they can have in a store.
Exactly.
And, to your point, bracketing is very common because, I'm not going to go to the store, but I'm not sure which color is going to look good on me. Maybe I should get 3 and then return 2. Especially when you think of, the brands that are in the lower margin categories like Temu and Shein, for instance, are designed so that you can, impulse buy 15 dresses and then figure out what you're going to wear to your prom and return the rest, which at the end of the day is, convenient for the customer, but it does add to our landfill. It adds to, bottom lines being destroyed and a lot of, different impacts. So I think it's a complicated problem, but one that is worth solving.
Yeah.
And I think supply chain folks are the ones that are going to play a big part in solving it, along with customers actually being concerned about sustainability. And, to your point, Ninad, getting more into the pre-loved, aspect of it. Like, it doesn't necessarily have to be brand new for me to enjoy it, as long as it's still valuable to me and it's something that I want to buy. I'll buy it at a discount because it is pre-loved. And I think there are thriving marketplaces that have shown us.
You know what's interesting with the preload stuff? The return rates are lower than the standard industry return rates because you know exactly what you're buying.
Yeah.
Right? Like, oh, there's a thread coming out from this pant, whatever, right?
Yeah.
The return rate's like 6-7%.
Right.
In relation to the 19-ish% on the other side of
the photos of the real actual product.
Yeah, exactly.
Not a stock photo.
Yeah.
I love it.
And in a lot of cases, these, marketplaces that sell these items that are either pre-loved or, have been returned are not necessarily less expensive, because sometimes what brands do is they actually ingest that and add some sort of customization and make it a limited, production run.
Sometimes the margins can be very, very attractive.
Exactly.
Because, the cost of goods of that secondhand, pre-loved item is very low in some circumstances.
Agreed.
Absolutely. So yeah, I think there's huge opportunities in the return space. And I'm glad you brought that up, Peter. Would love to hear some thoughts, closing remarks, I guess, from you guys in terms of, how do you see technology conversation kind of shifting and evolving this year? I think last year we saw a lot of people kind of pulling back and being conservative in terms of, how they wanted to invest and what they wanted to do in terms of new projects. And, there were a lot of things that were paused. How are you feeling about 2024, and do you see any shifts?
Yeah. I mean, listen, it's early days, but I think we are getting more and more confident that the tide has turned. Listen, as Ninad said, 2023, I think, was difficult for a lot of us. In our space, we're an expedited carrier. We saw a lot of, prospects who in 2022 were really bullish on accelerating shipping, reducing time in transits, getting to like a prime, like 2-day delivery. And then they sort of, the economic realities of 23, the uncertainty, is it going to be a recession, blah, blah, blah. They sort of put some of that on hold and are a lot more focused on just bottom line. How can they save money on shipping? Well, that seems that the U-turn again. When we talk to a lot of the prospects that we're talking to at the moment, early conversations we've been having throughout January and out to February, I mean, all of these prospects are back to talking about the consumer experience. How can we, speed up shipping again, create this really great post-purchase experience, invest in technology, everything from, tracking and notifications and, returns as part of this. Yep. And I think, I think there's a brighter outlook on the economy. I think they're feeling that the, US consumer is more resilient than they were perhaps planning, which is great. I also think people are really waking up to everything, all the money and the investment that Amazon is making. When we listen to Andy Jassy and every earnings report, he is just banging the drum on the same day investments. They just, announced last week, the billion packages were shipped same day last year. And I think this is starting to that message is getting through to all the other retailers that gosh, we have to up our game to, even attempt to keep up with Amazon.
Very true.
Exactly. No, I think investment in the right things that create better supply chains. I think you're going to see that, but that let's go try this out, some pilot, let's run new tech. I don't think this year is going to be that year where the investment of that nature is going to be there. I think where it's going to come down to ROI, where you sit down and say, hey, I really need to reduce my last mile cost or the cost to serve, right? And yeah, they're going to go try new carriers, right? But it's not going to be, hey, let's see if we can put these 10 robots in the corner of the building
I think we're past that sort of COVID shiny object session. And I see it here at the show. I think the type of technology, the type of vendors here is much more like a real ROI value.
Yes.
There's less of these sort of robotics, automation, shiny objects kicking around.
Yep. I agree.
That's really
I agree.
interesting. I think one of the thread of conversation we heard in the women's luncheon was around this topic of, we've had a little bit of a readjustment, but it's been good in a sense. I mean, it's been difficult for a lot of people, but in reality, we've needed this almost like a refresh so that everyone can, take a look at, how things should be done in a more holistic way rather than just thinking about going after the next, cool thing. I think a lot of people are starting to see, distinguish the forest from the trees. And I think it's a really strategic way to think about it and make the right investments and partnerships. So, I'm feeling optimistic about 2024 and, let's see how the year reveals itself. Using words there.
Yeah.
I think we're done here, guys. Thank you very much, Ninad and Peter, for joining us, and hope you have a wonderful time for the rest of the show.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Hi, I'm Ninad Acharya, CEO and co-founder of Fulfillment IQ, and I'm here with
Dan Call, CRO and partner at Fulfillment IQ. We're the team behind the eCom Logistics podcast. Our mission is to provide you with genuine insights from our work alongside logistics leaders to help you improve your supply chain.
In the eCom Logistics podcast, we share the knowledge and the insights we've gained from working alongside amazing brands, retailers, 3PLs, and VCs, so you can make the most out of your supply chain journey.
If you like what you're hearing, we'd truly appreciate your support with a 5-star rating on your favorite podcasting channel. Your feedback not only keeps us going, but also helps others find the podcast. If you think Fulfillment IQ can assist you, or if you have an idea related to logistics, just reach out to me on LinkedIn. I'm always up for a chat and ready to explore new possibilities together.
Stay tuned to the eCom Logistics podcast on your favorite podcast platform for fresh and practical insights into e-commerce and logistics. Until next time, let's keep making a difference in logistics together.